Okay, Western Civ, welcome to week 14. And I'm still kind of doing a lot of moving stuff. So my house and myself are a little disheveled, so pardon me. It was fun last week to be outside in the park. It's just been pouring and very cold and very windy up until just like an hour ago or so. Anyhow, okay, so we covered a lot of information dealing with a particular kind of the dark side of the West, dealing with the issue of colonization and slavery, to name a few. And I feel like although it was shorter and a lot of it wasn't necessarily lectures from me, I really feel like so far what I've been reading from you guys, you really seem to soak in kind of the implications of the discussion, and I like what I saw. I like a lot of how you guys responded in the notes and some of the papers I'm seeing. So now we come to this week, and really this is actually the last week of a normal routine of work. I mean, we're really coming up to the end here. So there's several things. If any of you have any loose ends with me, unresolved things, papers that aren't finished that we agreed to or whatever, this is the time we got to get everything finished up. Like, we got to get moving, okay? There's several of you that we've had negotiations for various personal sets of reasons. I myself kind of did not realize just how quickly things were coming to an end. So, so make sure that you're finishing up all that if you can. And what else did I want to say? Okay, so this week is also often how I start my Western Civ 105, for those of you who take me. And I also cover this in my World Civ class. The Reformation is massively important, and it's important for shaping the Western world in ways that are beyond. I mean, I can't even go on. I can't say enough about how huge the impact this would have. But what I'd also like you to think about is what happens here, kind of what you see taking place in the Islamic world, in Muslim, like in Syria, and what you've seen happen in Iraq, and if you followed what's going on in Yemen. Some of the really terrible violence that Muslims are inflicting on each other due to some sectarian causes. They're not all that for that reason, by the way, but for instance, the Shiite-Sunni split. Now, you may not remember some of that or know much of that. That's not important. I guess what I'm saying is that much of Europe starts really looking like these other war-torn parts of the world, where people are fighting over ideologies that are very close to each other from an outsider's perspective, but it has deadly consequences. But it also shifts the power of nobles and kings. I mean, we live in the United States of America that has been predominantly Protestant. The word Protestant comes from the word of protest, and it was protesting initially against the Catholic Church. I want to remind this to you, students, and this is something that I just covered Christianity in my World Civ class, and I still have students say Catholic and Christian as two separate categories. Even my Catholic students say that. Look, Catholicism is the Latin word for universal, implying the universal Church of Christ. Catholics are Christian. Now, whether or not you are a religious person and think that they're real or have it right, that's not for me to settle here. I'm merely pointing out that in the Western world, if you said you were a Christian up until the Reformation, most likely you meant you were a Catholic, or vice versa. It just was synonymous. Say Catholic or Christian, same thing. And then there became much more questions about what it meant to be a Christian, and then the bloodletting came on. Now, by the way, in the Christian world, we kind of might have talked about this in this class. I'm trying to remember if it was more. I think I covered it more so in my world religions class when I talked about Christianity and then the coming of Islam. And in about the century before Muhammad comes, in about the fifth and sixth centuries, and mainly the sixth, I think. Yeah, Christians were killing each other over the debates about the nature of Jesus in relation to his Godhead. In other words, there's a relation to his divinity and his humanness, and massive bloodlettings. And it also affected much of Christian history and things that were taking place. Well, the Reformation's kind of that like next big hit of the inner Christian debates. But again, it's going to do more than affect. It's what I want to also clarify. Like all wars now, there's many who argue that things are more political than not. I mean, that people have identity politics put into things, that certain nobles. I mean, when you see the King of England, he becomes Christian so that he can remarry, and breaks away from the Catholic Church. I mean, when you look at the development of the Church of England, it seems pretty obviously political, but I'll let you decide. And then I have these documentaries. I do one on Martin Luther, and for those who are not aware, Martin Luther King Jr. is different and named after the German Protestant theologian Martin Luther. Okay, and then there's Martin Luther King Jr., the African American activist in the United States. Different people, right? Way different times. Everything. Okay. And then I do a documentary on, have you watch on the King James Bible. It starts off slow. It's kind of slow. It might bore you to a certain extent, but I really want you to watch it because some of you will already be aware of the impact and the importance the King James has for certain Christian groups. But it's huge, and its impact also on the English language in terms of literature and all this. So it's good for you to watch. If you have any questions, contact me. I have been too busy. Some of you have contacted me, and I had to cut some conversations short. But Tuesday and Wednesday will be good times to get a hold of me for sure on anything else. And then next week we're just going to watch this documentary, and it's going to be more of a reflection on this class before we then do finals week. Okay, so we'll be in touch, and I'm glad we've hung it out this far. We've made it this far, right? So okay, have a good week. We'll be in touch.